Hi, this is DOSBox Mom.
Hello.
And Lost in Blue, and welcome to Let's Play Tunnels and Trolls Crusaders of Khazan. This was published in 1990 by New World Computing. It's currently distributed by the publisher of the pen and paper version of Tunnels and Trolls, Flying Buffalo. Was on floppy disk. It's on CD-ROM now, but you basically have to copy the whole thing and then to your hard drive and then run it that way. So this is the very first screen you see when you load the game, and it's the start of a very long introduction.
Which is why I am here.
So my throat doesn't get worn out. So let's get started. The little tavern of the Silver Swan reeked like taverns everywhere, of smoky oil lamps, spilled beer, and wet dogs. None of that surprised me. The liquid voice of the storyteller, the richness of his lute song, and the rapt attention he earned from the denizens of the place. Now that surprised me. Come on, enter.
I ordered my mug of dark wine and sat on a bench beside a ruddy-faced farmer.
I've been kicking around the backwaters of this dragon-shaped land for a lot of years,
I whispered.
But this fellow's voice belongs to the great hall of the Princess of Gaul.
Most bards, in my experience, croak like the ghost toads that fill the spiderhawk trees during the frog song rains. Not this fellow.
Shh,
said the farmer, red cheeks.
He's singing of the Wizard's War.
Which one of us is reading these lines?
I was reading the spoken bits.
Oh, you want to read all the spoken bits?
When you're reading the narration.
Fine. I don't argue with fate when she's kind. It happens so rarely. The minstrel is worth listening to, and, like the yokel, I listened.
That first night I sat in the Swan, Ellison caressed his bloodwood lute and sang of the great Wizard's War, a favorite of largely apocryphal topic among bards.
In the ancient times, shrouded by the mist of forgetfulness.
The line went something like that.
A legendary time when sorcerers knew no limits to their power, and a wizard's whim could overturn a common man's world with an eye blink. Endless power corrupted their minds. Insane with power, the mightiest sorcerers battled one another, having no other worthy opponents. Twisted monsters literally rose up from the landscape to wreak havoc on all, and lesser magicians dug holes in the earth to hide their paltry treasures away from the great and powerful.
But you've probably heard the story before. The world was blasted back to sticks and rocks. The great escarpment rose like an assassin's slash across the dragon's throat as the land buckled in protest, and thousands perished. Those who survived profoundly mistrusted the magical energies that had obliterated all that went before.
Too important a force to ignore, magic was placed under the control of the highly conservative and largely secretive Wizards Guild, and the world-breaking sorceries of ages gone were practiced no more. Ellison stopped singing then, and when I could get through the crowd of well-wishers, I bought him a mug of brandy.
After the Wizard's War ended,
the songmaster said with a smack of his lips,
things were bad for everyone. Red Cheek swung his legs over the bench, descending in our conversation.
I heard that humans had it bad, but the old races, the elves and dwarves and such, they really sided with the evil sorcerers and had it pretty good.
Ellison shook his head vigorously.
The bad old days came down like darkness on everyone, and the old races fared no better. All the humans' close relatives, and yes, Farmer Red Cheeks, the long-eared elves and the dwarves and the rustic homie hobs were all your kin, had to struggle daily for the minimal needs of survival. A young hob in a blue shirt spoke up from beside me.
Our people remember better perhaps than yours. Settled lands were few and far between, and the monstrous kindreds bloody-handed struck down careless travelers without the slightest fear of retribution. They certainly didn't care if the traveler was 4 spans tall or 8. Elisan swallowed a mouthful of his brandy.
Men walled those first small towns, and hob and dwarf delved into the cliffs and hills. Elfkin disappeared into the forest depths, and everyone hid.
He maintained it was only the prodigious fertility of humans that ensured their continuation to the next age. I won't tell more of that time now,
said the songmaster.
That tale I save for tomorrow night.
He finished the last of his drink and disappeared into the back room. Though I had planned to continue my journey, I took a bed myself in one of the Silver Swan's upper floor rooms. I only had to displace a few of their larger vermin.
The second night, Elisan drew even more of a crowd, among them the farmer and the hob. Elisan sang of the first great heroes, men and women who battled back the bloodthirsty ghouls and the toad warriors and the evil-hearted orcs and trolls and goblins to make a little peace for the young towns.
Then rose the great wizard Khazan, a giant of a man. Khazan worked tirelessly, uniting the tiny towns with single-minded vision of a great empire. The city Haromi, how do we pronounce that? The mouth of the Thar River became his capital city, renamed Khazan in the wizard's honor.
Khazan and his empire set an example to all of what the best of the so-called civilized races could be. Driven into the dark hinterlands, monsterkind diminished in power except for brief erratic attempts to regain their lost domains.
A golden age ensued, for humankind and kin, at least two. And with the arcane sorceries at his command, Khazan ruled benevolently for 6 centuries. His powerful guidance brought peace and prosperity from the tip of the dragon's nose to the Axridge Mountains, and a traveler could walk the great road without fear. For Koth, the capital, carrying a sack of diamonds. Great as he was, however, the wizard Khazan had not eliminated evil and ambition.
Just look around you if you doubt that. Under the threat of oblivion, the monsterkin responded with ever greater wit and determination. The first major success was the secret subversion of Khazan's closest associate, Karakhang. The keystone, though, came with the rise of the mysterious Leotra, she who united the monstrous kindreds against human rule. "Stop!"
shouted the hob, shaking with fear. Elisan's songmaster broke off his song.
"Evil follows all mention of her name."
The denizens of the bar shuddered. In truth, threats of an impending visit from the deaf empress had been used by countless mothers to quiet squalling children. Probably everyone there had their share of nightmares, grounded in ignorance and fear.
Elisan smoked soothingly to the crowd as he received a fresh drink from me.
The deaf empress' name should not frighten you. She might frighten you, but she is far off in the capital of Khazan, has never set foot in this village, I expect.
Hush muttering laced with fear surged across the hall.
The barkeep, Phoenix Bung Tapper, pounded on his bar.
"Never had a drink in this tavern, never will!"
He pulled a fat little keg from near his feet and set up on the bar.
"Now, a very old cask of Blackwater's best, the last in the region. Who's got a merry face for a mug of Blackwater's best?"
Yay!
The crowd enlivened considerably after that. Even Elisan's statement that there'd be just one more night of song did little to dishearten the people. His voice would be worth waiting for. I found a relatively quiet corner in which to stare at my wine, and Elisan joined me after I'd emptied and refilled it once. "I thought you looked like a man who's seen more of the world than he tells,"
said the singer.
I nodded slowly. Oh, wait.
I nodded slowly.
The local folk like that little hob. They wouldn't care for most of my stories.
Elisan's lips twisted in amusement.
I might have a use for them, though. Not every hob has a quaking heart.
Hey!
The young hob took a seat across from the two of us, looking severe.
You saying I'm a weak heart?
Ellison raised a hand, his fingertips calloused from the strings.
In truth, I've never yet known a hob who lacked a stout heart. I'm sure you've a reason to dread the Death Empress.
The hob plucked at the coarse homespun of his sleeve.
Not really. I don't know that much about her. I came over to apologize for stopping your songs. Ellison waved away the words.
The song ended there in any case. No reason to apologize. Perhaps,
I said.
You just need to learn a little bit about her.
I glanced at the songmaster and found him watching me intently.
12 years ago, I stood on the streets of Tallymark and watched her high and mightiness pass through that sad little village at the head of a double battalion of half-orcs.
Chasing down a forbidden coat of werebears, I believe, that I plotted to overthrow. Or perhaps they were just as respectable. They named her La Roche Trap. Not to her face, I bet, but it caught on.
The hob looked stricken and grinned weakly.
The person I saw that day was one impressive being, whatever her parentage. Though I don't find it hard to doubt the tales about her. She's a powerful-looking woman, very grim that day in her black leather, with the pointed ears of her mother's elven folk, and the fiery gleam of orc kin in her eyes.
Not a pretty lady, no, but exotic, charismatic, a very compelling figure. I've seen all types, and I won't soon forget her. How she happened, no one asked. I rather doubt even she knows. Leotra's history, though.
Ellison stopped me there.
That's where my tale starts.
He promised.
Tomorrow night.
When he picked up his lute the next night, he sang to the tavern packed to the rafters.
Leotra rode out of the Kargish Mountains 4 centuries ago, leading monster hordes in organized warfare, something almost unheard of among the quarrelsome and irritable monsterkin. Khazan's response to Leotra's invasion proved adequate until Karakang revealed his allegiance to the Death Queen as she was then known. With Karakang firmly on the side of monsterdom, the balance of power reached an indecisive and bloody stalemate. Endless battles waged around nameless towns, and brutal conflicts left creek beds formerly dry, foaming with the mixed blood of races humanoid and monstrous alike.
Finally, to preserve what little he had wrought, Khazan proposed a truce to end the bloodshed on both sides. The great wizard agreed to step down, to go into exile. He would separate himself from the world and its concerns. Leotra would rule. In exchange, the half-orc, half-elf woman would allow land and rights to man and monster alike, favoring neither and tolerating both.
When the truce was settled and the mutual oaths and ensorcelments finalized, Khazan took his leave and disappeared. For 400 years, the Death Empress has honored the Great Treaty, in fact, if not always in spirit. Man and monster contend as individuals and occasionally meet as friends, but the massive troop movements and the bloody wars largely ended with the treaty. Leotra's rulership, aided by the bureaucratically minded Karakang, has been uneasy.
Only north of the Great Escarpment does the Empire rule with a firm hand. The lesser towns and baronies to the south largely tend to their own affairs, and the great island of Faron remaining an independent principality, just as it was since Khazan's time.
The last chords of Elisan's lute faded, and he cleared his throat.
The song ends there,
he said,
but not the tale. You all know the stories of what's been happening up north, and you don't need a squire to get a forecasting of the future. I can tell you that, because I was in the capital just 1 year ago. The signs there were to be seen.
Leotra and her minion Karakang have loosed the bonds of the treaty. The icy heart of the Death Empress sees that humankind and kin are prospering even without her favor. The human scum who once sided with their orcs are settling into cottages on the edges of the great forest. Even the occasional ogre takes up shepherding rather than stealing a lamb from a hob's flocks.
And the independent city-states threaten her sovereignty. The Death Emperor's foments dissent now, making capricious rulings against some hot-headed northerners, and sending troublemakers to rouse the mistrust of humankind among the monsterkin. The monstrous troops of the Empire are gathering, and humankind and kin are their targets. The ruddy-faced farmer spoke up from near the back wall.
Pretty minstrels' tales. But the great wizard will stop him eventually. That's what the treaty's all about, right? Anyway, I heard all that trouble's exaggerated. Just a little village that a troll took down. Nothing special.
I heard Tallymark was burned to the ground,
Shouts the hob from atop one of the tables.
I had relatives up near there, and I hadn't heard from them in months.
Alisand looked at the farmer sadly and nodded at the hob.
Rumors chase each other like dogs chase cats, but this is true. There has been much death, and the troops have been marching. The wizard Khazan does not seem to remember.
Perhaps the evil pair ruling in the capital have made it too difficult for him to recall his obligation to this world. Certainly Karakang's knowledge of his former master puts him in a unique position to undermine the safeguards and alarms which the wizard Khazan surely placed to alert him of the treaty were bent much less broken. I fear we face another bloody dark age.
I stood.
Alisand, all of you, listen. I'm a stranger here, but a well-traveled man in my own right. With the turn of the millennium always comes a time of changes. I suspect that Karakang and the Death Empress have planned long and well to escape the chafing bonds of the treaty at this particular time. But when the need is...
When the need is great, humankind always finds the heroes it needs among its best and bravest men and women. That same drive for greatness exists in the dwarfkin kind, and among the fair elves, and even in the dowdy little hobs. I say that a band of adventurers could overthrow the tyrants in the capital, and overcome the barriers that bind the great wizard Khazan in sleep, or death, or exile. Murmuring rose to babbling, and then to shouts. Finally, Alisand's commanding voice overrode the noise.
And you! Are you offering yourself as the leader of such a band?
I laughed.
Not I. I spoke of the best and bravest. I'm neither. But I do know this. The ones who chose this adventure will be remembered in songs like yours, Alisand, until the sun grows cold and all the mountains have flattened to plains. Alisand smiled in agreement.
Whoa.
Okay, just hang on.
Type in the word. Please enter.
Yeah,
the word.
may it soon come to pass, he said, for our need is great. And they toast, and
someone said, come, and it's you!
So basically, it's your job.
Yes, it's our job. Please enter.
Word 2 of line 3 on page 7 of the Tunnels and Trolls manual. Now, I still have my original manual from the old floppy disk version from 1990. If you should have one of the CD-ROM copies that you can get from Flying Buffalo nowadays, they do have PDFs of the manual in there. So we're going to go to page 7.
7.
Line 3, word 2. Okay, so this is a lot like the looking up stuff in the manual that we found in a lot of the gold box games. Okay, and there's our main screen. And this is the first time we've played it.
That is got to be the longest intro I've ever seen in a game.
They could have cut that like by about half, at least, maybe 90%.
They don't
so
know how
we're going to type
something.
letter F for our first game. And now we can make characters, rename characters, delete characters.
Well, I think we need to make a character.
We need to make a character first. So we're going to press M for make. And we need to pick a race. Basically, elves make good wizards, dwarves make good warriors, hobs make good rogues, and humans can be just about anything. This is, of course, based on the pen and paper version of Tunnels and Trolls, which was like only the second pen and paper fantasy role-playing system to be developed. The first one after Dungeons and Dragons. So it uses lots of D6, almost no polyhedral dice. It's like one or two places in the rules where you could use a 20-sider or percentile dice, but it's almost entirely D6. So I think we'll start with an elf.
I'm guessing the reason it's mainly D6 is because even if you're not a dedicated gamer, you should have a D6 lying around somewhere.
Like three 6-sided dice. It's very easy to get. Maybe a female for this one?
Sure.
Okay. Now, we're going to be doing a lot of re-rolling. Age, that's not so important, because elves don't age as fast. Let's see. Speed's okay. Constitution isn't that great. I might try re-rolling a few times to see if we can get somebody with everything at least 9. It might not work, though.
So shall we pause the recording?
We might pause the recording until we get something we like.
Alright.
Okay.
Hit the pause.
Okay, at this point, basically we had muted the sound.
We hadn't realized it.
And then when we came back from pause, we forgot to unmute it. So basically we continued rolling up our characters. We had finished rolling up our elf mage. And here in a little bit we get to where we picked out a portrait for her. It seemed in every case
they have like one stripperific one, and then they have sort of a bit more
modestly dressed.
Yeah.
So we went with a more modestly dressed option in each one. And then we chose a name for each character.
For our elf, we chose the name. It will come out eventually.
We were discussing what name to give her. And I went with something very
Tolkien-y.
Yeah. Now I'm finally typing it.
One with the name Arwen Undomiel. Because DOSBox mom is a Tolkien fan.
Very much a Tolkien fan. And we decided, yes, we will use this character.
We didn't just make this for kicks and giggles.
And then we started in rolling up the other characters in the party. So we rolled up a dwarf warrior.
We are selecting that, and we made him
male,
as obvious by the fact that I said him.
And basically we were going to spend a lot of time re-rolling.
Because, it kept on seeming like one stat would be terrible. Or like a bunch of them would be terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And we are
just about done, so we'll see you in the next episode. See you then.